I was already up and anxious for the day. It had been 2 months since my meeting with Salem. Training with Lady Cinder from morning until evening, constant sparring matches leaving me either exhausted or frustrated. Lady Cinder wasn't much of a teacher with words, though she may also assume that I should know how to fight due to my history of hunting. She also did not mince words or actions, immediately making sure the pressure was on. The plan being to get me into fighting shape as fast as possible. Just last night was the first time I claimed victory over her, though barely. However, that wasn't the source of my anxieties. She seemed very annoyed with my victory, not expecting it. Her scorn was not the cause of my tension. Her words before closing my door, that was the culprit of my concern.
Be up early and quickly. Your purpose starts tomorrow.
My purpose. Salem spoke of that very thing. My life, dedicated to the hunt, has become Lady Cinder's hunter. No longer am I to hunt the abominations known as Grimm, but whoever's considered an enemy to my lady. Then the prophecy entered my head. Am I truly the other one that this prophecy needs to be completed? Even worse, what if I am the one meant for this prophecy? What happens to everything? To me? To Lady Cinder? I just let out a breath and refocused. Today's the day I start my end of that vow. The door swung open, and where I expected Lady Cinder was a man. His eyes were void of any sense of humanity, only chaos and insanity. His long black hair in a braid. He bent forward, getting a closer look at me. His small yellow eyes moving around, remembering every part of my body. I felt again like prey. Though this man was very different from Salem, where Salem's presence demanded reverence and respect. His presence demanded fear. I gulped and tried not to tense up.
When I heard little Cinder had a new pet, I expected something more substantial.
He was baiting me, first by disrespecting Lady Cinder. I had no love for Cinder by any means, but she was the only reason I'm still alive. I maintained a calm face, but was still preparing for anything as he stepped into the room and began walking around me. I stood still as a statue, but my body was just tense enough to respond in any way.
Now then, little cat, what is your name?
I stayed quiet, watching ever so closely as he walked back into view. His smile faltered a bit as he backhanded me. I looked back at him, still silent.
Well, I see Cinder hasn't taught you manners.
He sent a punch towards my face. I dodged, but was careful not to counterattack. I've never seen this man before, but for someone to walk freely around, he must have some authority. He stared at me, and though his eyes showed a seething rage, his frown twisted into a smile.
Quick, little cat. Fine. We can do this your way.
His movements were quick. A lightning-fast spinning heel kick aimed at my head. I ducked and immediately rolled to the side to dodge something attempting to stab me. I looked at him, seeing a scorpion stinger stretched to its full limit, going through my previous position. My eyes narrowed at him. He's a faunus. A very dangerous faunus. I had no idea if there was actual venom in that tail, but I equally didn't want to find out. He didn't give me time as he threw himself at me. Before he struck again, a clearing of the throat stopped him.
Ahem.
The psycho stopped in his tracks. Obviously furious he wasn't able to finish what was started. He growled to see who it was.
Who dares interrupt my fun? I will. Oh, little Cinder. Well, how appropriate. A bigger animal abusing your pet so naturally. The owner would step in and...
I have no time for your nonsense, Tyrian. Our queen needs you in the meeting room. Now.
The way she said now let it be known that there was no room to be ignored. Again, he looked disappointed.
Fine, fine.
He spun around and smiled at me and patted my cheek.
I am sure that we'll see each other again. Hopefully we'll have a more courteous introduction to each other.
I stayed silent and watched him walk out. Lady Cinder walked to me and slapped me across the face.
Watch who you pick fights with. You're useless to me dead. Now, did he hurt you?
I shook my head, maintaining my silence. I learned to wait to be told to speak, letting her lead the conversation exactly as she pleases. I also noticed her holding Jaded Thorn in her hand. It revealed what made today so special much more apparent.
You're allowed to speak.
Who is he?
Tyrian Kalos, the serial killer. He worships our queen the way Atlas reveres Ironwood. Everyone else in Remnant might as well be dust on his boots for all he cares.
Her eyes still scanned over me, making sure there was no injury.
Are you sure he didn't injure you?
No, Your Grace, he didn't. She seemed satisfied with that response.
I see. He must know that he can't kill you, so merely tried scaring you. Did it work?
No, Your Grace. Lady Cinder looked at me for a while longer, her amber eyes examining any hint of dishonesty. She nodded and turned around.
Our queen is waiting for us as well. Follow.
Her usual short responses are no longer jarring to me. I followed as she walked out of the room. Similar to 2 months ago, the walk was quiet. Her grip tightened on Jaded Thorn as we stopped in front of the meeting room's door. Lady Cinder looked at me, handing me Jaded Thorn as the heavy doors opened. I did not even think about moving until Lady Cinder took the first step. I followed closely behind her right shoulder as we entered what felt more like a war room rather than a conference room. A giant man who looked absolutely apathetic to what was happening. He was the one Lady Cinder despised about all his research. I could not for the life of me remember his name. And squatting on his chair was Tyrian. He giggled and waved. My eyes narrowed as I looked at the queen and bowed.
Rowan, a pleasure to see you again. I suspect that you are back to full strength?
I raised my head and nodded. Yes, Your Grace. Thankful to Lady Cinder, who was diligent with my training to further serve her and, by extension, you.
You serve our goddess!
Tyrian, stand down.
Her tone was like talking to a pet that was acting out. Though with how quickly he obeyed without a word of rebelliousness, maybe that description wasn't too far off.
How are you feeling, Rowan? I'm certain you already know why you're here.
Yes, Your Grace. I am nervous, but ready to serve regardless. The honesty seemed to please the grim queen as a small smile appeared on her face and her face turned to Cinder.
Is he ready, my apprentice?
Cinder bowed slightly, giving me a side glance.
He is capable and ready, mistress.
Good.
She raised a hand and 2 grim knights dragged a person into the room from behind me. The person was male, looked no older than the early 20s. He was beaten to shit. Dried blood caked his face. Long healing cuts across his body. The only clothing he was given was torn pants, barely hiding more wounds on his legs. The grim knights threw him on the ground.
This is your test, Rowan. You are to kill this young man.
I looked at Salem and hesitantly drew my sword, giving Cinder the sheath.
Don't be so hesitant, child. This man helped in a drug trafficking system all across Mistral, and a sex trafficking ring. He is nothing but scum of the earth. No one will mourn him, and he has given us all the information to end this ring. So in order to make sure his organization crumbles, you may as well take out its first member.
You said you were going to set me free! He sounded frantic, scared. All normal reactions when faced with the end of your life. I looked at Salem. Her expression was predictably unchanged. If anything, she seemed bemused that he was close to begging for his life.
And I changed my mind. Anyone should be allowed to do that. You've had years to change your mind, yet you stayed in your employer's pocket and handled horrible actions that, even for me, are apprehensible. Rowan, please dispose of this disgrace.
I looked back at him. She had a point. All those people he gave that first drug to, all those people that they kidnapped and sold to other people for pleasure. He could have walked away and told someone who would be able to put a stop to it. But he didn't. He stayed where he was at, reaping the benefits of the suffering of others. I felt my hand clench my sword tighter as I began to lift it. Hey, buddy! You don't have to do this! You don't have to listen to her! She's crazy! She wants to destroy the world and... One slash, and his words devolved into choked gurgles. His throat cut. I looked at him. My heart was cold towards him. He looked at me pleadingly as if there was something I could do to keep him alive. After a time, his body finally allowed itself to breathe its last. I wiped the blood off the sword as Cinder handed back the sheath to let me return the blade to its home.
Take his body out of here.
2 grim knights walked past me, grabbing the corpse and dragging it back outside. I looked at the table of people. None minus Salem looked impressed. This felt all too easy. If they wanted a simple execution, surely they could have used a Grim to do the job.
Well done, Rowan, well done. Now this is only part 1. We are going to end both despicable entities that the young man was a part of. You'll be sent to Mistral at once. Eliminate the leader and return. You leave immediately. Cinder will give you any needed information. You all may leave.
Let's go.
Lady Cinder's tone was hurried. There were no times for questions, there was only time to act. That was the foundation of her tone. I was immediate in my obedience and followed her, putting the sword on my back, clasping the belt diagonal across my chest. She took me to a room. It was empty except for a pedestal. I looked at her as she held up her hand. She closed her eyes and took a breath. Her hand glowed slightly. Little wisps of energy spat from each finger. I was almost mesmerized by it as she laid her hand slowly on the stone pedestal. I nearly jumped out of my skin when I saw all of these strange symbols take over the room. They glowed red and orange. None of them were readable. The harder I tried to decipher, the harder they were to read. This show of supernatural power climaxed with a large circle of fire in front of us.
This portal will take you to the roof of the building you're storming. The target is a young vacuo man named Verdon Milness. Disgusting man. According to the rumors we've picked up, you'll smell him long before you see him. So make sure you put that fauna sense of smell to good work. You are allowed to use whatever means necessary to get the job done.
She turned her head to look at me and held out her hand. A small transmitter rested on her palm.
Put this in your ear. I'll be able to communicate with you this way.
Again, I obeyed without question. I heard the static of it coming to life.
Good. Now get the job done.
I walked through the portal, felt heat for a split second, and the next I was on a rooftop. I went to the edge for a second, seeing the large, unique city of Mistral. Buildings built on the sides of mountains, birds off in the distance. I gulped. I was outside of the fortress. I got to see the beauty of this world again. I looked up to see the gorgeous shattered moon. It felt like years since I had seen it without the roaring of Grimm surrounding me. I heard Lady Cinder's voice crackle to life into my ear, interrupting my admiration.
Stop sightseeing. You have a job to do. This isn't a vacation.
Yes, Your Grace. I took a breath, getting my body and mind focused, and drew my sword. I walked, focusing my hearing to the door before me. hoping and praying that no one would be on the other side. I gently pushed the door to prevent any potential squeaking and looked down the staircase. Thankfully, I was a fauna, so the darkness covering the staircase was completely absent to my eyes. I stalked down, sword held, ready for a quick kill. I would take time to sniff the air. As Lady Cinder stated, I would be able to smell a pungent odor. With every step, my anxiety grew. When will someone find their way to this staircase? I gripped my sword tighter and just kept walking. After 5 flights, I was hit with the smell that I could only describe as the combination of rotting flesh and spoiled fruit invade my nostrils, causing me to almost retch. Again, Lady Cinder's voice cackled to life.
Sounds like you found him. Go take him out and get back here.
Easy for her to say. She didn't have to try to mentally function with this disgusting stench.
No complaining. Take a breath of fresh air, go kill him and get back. I don't want to hear a word until he's dead.
I controlled my breathing. My owner commanded it of me. So I guess I can't complain. I cracked the door and peeked inside. It was a long hallway. God, this smell was unbearable. There were 2 masked armed men about 5 feet from the door. I envied their masks. Plan of action: take them out swiftly and take a mask. I looked at their waist. Each of them was armed with just a pistol. This would be disgustingly easy. I opened the door wider and snuck through, my sword ready. I swiftly and quietly ran to the first one, keeping myself low as I stabbed him through the chest, following up with another quick stab to the other one's throat, silencing him. I stole the second one's mask before it got too much blood on it. I looked around and a plan popped in my head as I took one of their pistols. I sheathed my sword and searched as quickly as I could. The smell still unbearable, even with a mask. God, I'm gonna make this motherfucker suffer. Did he never bathe? By the gods! Literally halfway down the near eternal hallway was a door that made me vomit from the stench. I heard a whiny voice on the other side yelling at someone on the phone. I opened the door and closed it. A short, skinny man with blue hair walked out in a tank top and some old shorts. What the fuck, man? Didn't I tell you dumbasses to stay outside? I mean, someone could try and come in. Who the fuck are you? I said nothing and walked forward. My lady told me I couldn't speak until he was dead. God, you fucking fawness fucks! This is why I never employ you. I kidnap you and sell you for a profit, sure, but I never fucking employ. I drew my sword, still dripping with the blood of his guards. His expression changed from disgust to fear. Then realizing that he was showing his weakness, he immediately smiled. Maybe we start on the wrong foot. I'm Verdon motherfucking Milnes. Yes, that's my legal name before you ask. Now, if you're looking for something, I got it. Money, drugs, women, men? Hell, I don't judge. You can have whatever the fuck you want. What do you say? He extended his grimy hand towards me. I stared at it. The pure selfishness and pride that something he has can save him somehow disgusted me more than his overpowering stench. With one swipe of my blade, his hand collapsed to the ground. He gasped and stumbled backwards. The only thing saving him was a swift stab to the foot. He tried to scream, but a quick punch to the face shut him up real quick, and I removed the sword from his foot. He pushed himself into a corner, practically crawling like a worm. Listen, I don't know who hired you, but I'll pay you triple, quadruple to not. Just like his associate in Salem's council room, the cut to his throat prevented a complete plea for help. I stood there and watched the man gurgle his last. I looked over to the window, opened it up. I extended the arm that held a pistol and fired every bullet until the gun was empty. Your Grace, I am ready to go.
What the hell was that? Are you injured?
Twice in one day.
What?
Nothing. I'm uninjured and leaving now. Just as fast as I had arrived, I left. A couple of lackeys may have seen a brief glimpse of me, but not nearly enough to open fire. Up the stairs, and I looked at the beautiful lit city as the portal of fire opened in front of me, and I walked through it. Immediately bringing me back to the empty room I left, Lady Cinder glared at me. She looked at the gun that was still in my hand.
What reason do you have for firing off those rounds? Your orders were to kill the slop and leave. Nothing else.
I wanted to clean up the rest.
You could have been killed.
I had a plan.
Do you not understand? You have nothing. I own you. Your plan is my plan. Give me your full reason why I shouldn't just throw you away now, since you can't follow a simple order.
I wanted to free everyone who was captured for the slave ring. No one should live like that. Her stare was somehow equally softer and harsher.
Go to your room.
Will I be punished?
No food tonight or tomorrow. No food tonight or tomorrow.
She took the gun from my hand and melted it in front of me, as her eyes flared, glaring at me, also taking my sword in sheath. I bowed and walked back to my room. The grim nights closed my door. I sat on my bed and laid back thinking about that stare. She was a scary woman and equally as strong. I wondered why her stare softened like that. I never took the time to think that maybe Lady Cinder had an upbringing. I guess I just always thought she was trained and raised by Salem. I let out a gentle breath and closed my eyes to go to sleep. No need to worry about anything that I probably wouldn't ever find out.